It begins not in a temple, nor within the pages of a forgotten manuscript, but in the stillness between moments, a place where time folds inward and reality exhales. There, in the hush that precedes all becoming, something ancient stirs. Before the first breath of the cosmos, before the stars ignited their song across the firmament, there was only mind, vast, luminous, indivisible. The ancients called it the All, not as a god to be worshipped, but as the boundless source from which all gods, worlds, and thoughts emerge. It is not a being, but being itself. And from it emerged the first Hermetic law, the principle of mentalism. The emerald tablet, etched in cryptic verse by Thoth the Atlantean, speaks, "All is mind, the universe is mental." This is no metaphor. It is a cipher, a seed of sacred recognition planted in the soil of the initiate soul. The great mystery is this: the universe is not constructed of matter alone, nor energy, nor even light, but of consciousness. Everything you see, feel, and touch is a projection, a dream arising from the deep well of universal thought. The pyramid, the mountain, the storm, the body, all crystallizations of the one mind dreaming itself into form. To understand this is to awaken from the illusion of separation. For if all is mind, then you, the seeker, are not merely inside the universe. You are the universe, thinking itself through 1,000 forms. You are a ripple in the great ocean of awareness, and every wave that touches you is your own reflection. The Hermetic sages of Egypt, Alexandria, and the hidden schools knew this. They left hints in stone and myth, in the ibis-headed scribe who wrote the names of stars before they were born, in the silent gaze of statues that seem to remember something we have forgotten. The temples of Dendera, Edfu, and Philae once resonated with chants that aligned thought with form, mind with matter. The priests, cloaked in linen and time, understood that reality responds to the currents of will, imagination, and belief. To think with clarity was to shake the world. To speak with intention was to summon the unseen, and to truly know this principle was to hold the key to all the others. But this truth was veiled, hidden behind allegory, sealed within secret orders, protected from those who would wield it with greed. For the principle of mentalism is not safe knowledge. It dissolves kingdoms of ego and strips illusion bare. It demands the seeker to look inward and see the architect of their own chains, every thought a builder, every belief a brick in the temple or the prison. And so the journey begins here, with the realization that you are not merely a traveler through the world, but the creator of the path itself. What you perceive, you project. What you judge, you sustain. What you resist, you empower. The world bends not to force, but to focus consciousness. This is the first veil lifted, and once lifted, it cannot be returned. But the mind, like fire, needs direction. Thought without rhythm creates chaos. Intention without structure leads to collapse. That is why the ancient ones spoke not of one law, but of 7. And as the principle of mentalism awakens your inner vision, another law begins to stir from beneath the sands of memory, the secret dance of cause and consequence, echo and origin. As the dust of the first revelation settles, and the echo of all his mind still pulses within, a second whisper emerges, quieter, yet more piercing. It speaks not of origin, but of consequence. It moves like a serpent coiled around the tree of life, hissing truths into the hearts of those who dare to listen. Every cause has its effect. Every effect has its cause. This is the principle of causation, the second Hermetic law, and it governs the sacred chain that links thought to outcome, deed to destiny, breath to storm. Nothing escapes it. Not the rising of the sun, nor the collapse of an empire, not the smallest flutter of a moth's wings, nor the vast turning of galaxies. All events, seen and unseen, are links in an unbroken chain forged in the forge of eternity. To the uninitiated, the world seems filled with accidents, coincidences, cruel jokes of fate. But the initiate sees the deeper pattern, the hidden, architecture of consequence behind the veil. For what appears to be chance is merely a name for a law not yet understood. The fall of a civilization is written long before the first stone crumbles. A betrayal blooms from seeds planted in silence. A miracle, too, is no anomaly. It is the precise intersection of unseen currents aligning in sacred rhythm. In the ancient city of Heliopolis, where obelisks once reached toward the heavens like frozen prayers, the priests taught this law through the myth of Ma'at, the goddess of divine order. Her feather balanced the heart of the dead, not in judgment, but in measure, for even death follows the lines drawn by thought, word, and deed. Nothing escapes the scales, nothing vanishes into the void. But this law is no punishment. It is not retribution, but reflection. The universe, governed by mind, reflects back to the thinker what the thinker projects. If you sow in fear, you reap confusion. If you plant in love, you harvest clarity. The world does not respond to what you wish, it responds to what you are. The Hermetic masters understood this, and they lived accordingly, not as victims of life, but as co-authors of it. They practiced ritual not to beg the gods, but to harmonize with law. They used words as spells because each sound sent ripples into the fabric of causality. Their temples were built in alignment with stars, not for beauty, but because form itself affects flow. Consider now the karmic fields of the East, echoes of this very Hermetic law. Or the Norse threads of fate spun by the Norns, or the biblical decree, as you sow, so shall you reap. All are mirrors of the same truth, that every moment is both seed and harvest, that what you choose now sends tremors forward through time. This knowledge is both a burden and a liberation. For if your present is the result of past choices, your future lies trembling in the hands of what you choose to think, believe, and become now. Nothing is fixed, nothing is cursed. You are not condemned, you are creating. And yet, a question remains: if all things arise from cause, how do causes themselves begin? Where lies the first motion, the original pulse? And who or what weaves these events together to glimpse the next layer of this unfolding reality? One must enter the mirror and see not just what happens, but how, for there is a law that governs rhythm and return, flux and flow, a law that speaks in tides and cycles, in the heartbeat of time. Beneath the visible patterns of cause and consequence lies another current, subtler than breath, more ancient than stone. It is the rhythm that cradles the cosmos, the silent pendulum that swings behind the veil. Civilizations rise and fall by it. Stars are born and die to its tempo. The Hermetic sages named it the principle of rhythm, the third law, the breath of the all made manifest in motion. To everything there is a season, whispered Ecclesiastes. But long before Scripture echoed it, the priests of Chem watched the Nile rise and recede, the moon wax and wane, the sun retreat to the underworld, and rise reborn. They understood this was no mere natural cycle. It was a cosmic pulse, the manifestation of the divine breath exhaling form, then inhaling it back into mystery. This law reveals itself in every domain. In nature, it is the changing of the tides, the orbit of planets, the migration of birds. In the body, it is the rise and fall of the lungs, the dance of hormones, the rhythm of sleep and wake. In the mind, it becomes emotion, joy followed by sorrow, confidence by doubt, passion by stillness. It is not a punishment, it is the great equalizer. It ensures that nothing stays forever, that extremes are always balanced, that movement returns to center. But here lies the hidden wisdom. While the pendulum swings, the initiate learns to stand still. The unawakened are tossed by emotion, circumstance, and fate, dragged to exaltation or despair by tides they cannot control. But the Hermetic adept, knowing rhythm, learns detachment. They do not deny the swing, they transcend it. They observe the crest and the trough and remain unmoved, like a pillar in the center of a spinning world. The teachings carved in forgotten sanctuaries taught this subtly. Isis, mourning Osiris, is not just myth, she is the ebb. Horus rising to avenge him is the flow. Together, they illustrate the law. Even the darkness of Set has its place, for without the night, the dawn holds no power. The initiate, in observing this law, learns to ride the cycles without resistance, to act when the tide is favorable, and retreat when it recedes, like a seasoned navigator of unseen seas. Modern minds, enslaved by linear thinking, fear the downswings. We resist endings, resist decay, resist silence. But the Hermetic path teaches otherwise. The descent is sacred. In the valley the next peak begins. In winter, the seed sleeps. In heartbreak, the soul deepens. There is power in surrendering to the current without losing the center. And yet, rhythm alone is not chaos. It moves in balance. Every action has its echo. Every force meets a counterforce. The rhythm is not random. It is balanced by design. This leads us toward the fourth principle, the great twin flame of rhythm, the principle of polarity. For to truly understand the pulse, one must understand the poles, and to understand the poles is to walk the line between extremes, and then dissolve them. It is in the twilight, when day kisses night, that the next law reveals itself, not in proclamation, but in paradox. The seeker stands between heat and cold, love and hate, life and death, and begins to see not contradiction, but continuum. This is the principle of polarity, the fourth Hermetic law, and it whispers, everything is dual, everything has poles, everything has its pair of opposites. To the untrained eye, this world appears fractured, carved into binaries, good and evil, light and dark, spirit and matter. But the initiate sees deeper. They see that all opposites are but the same thing, differing only in degree. Heat and cold are not separate forces. They are the same vibration at different frequencies. Love and hate, too, are not enemies, but twins who share the same heartbeat, moving in opposite directions along the same line of emotion. This law was hidden in the ancient glyphs of the two lands, Upper and Lower Egypt, ruled not by two kings, but by one pharaoh who wore the double crown, signifying mastery of both domains. It was etched in the Tao, where Yin curves into Yang, and Yang gives birth again to Yin. And it breathes in the Gnostic Gospels, where the Savior is both light and flame, healer and sword. The alchemists of old did not seek to destroy shadow, they sought to reconcile it. They understood that gold is born not by rejecting the base, but by transmuting it. Within lead lies the seed of radiance, within sorrow, the seed of wisdom. The initiate does not flee from darkness, they enter consciously, bearing the torch of understanding. Only there can the poles be unified. Only there can true transformation begin. This principle, once grasped, becomes a sacred tool. For if cold can become hot, and fear can become courage, then the seeker is no longer bound by circumstance. They become the transmuter, the one who shifts frequency by shifting perception. Hate, held in the flame of higher thought, melts into compassion. Doubt, lifted toward reason, becomes the very soil from which faith grows. And yet, polarity is not only internal, it is cosmic. The material and the spiritual, so often cast as war, are but poles of the same divine essence. The world is not a prison, but a mirror. What you see in matter is the slow dance of spirit made visible. The initiate walks with one foot in each world, speaking with angels while shaping stone. In sacred architecture, this understanding was enshrined. The temple of Luxor mirrors the human body, microcosm and macrocosm aligned. Every chamber, a chakra, every column, a vertebra of cosmic ascent. The initiates passed through polarities of light and shadow, silence and chant, death and rebirth, to awaken the eye that sees beyond division. But if all is dual, what then holds the opposites in place? What binds the poles in tension without collapse? To glimpse this force is to meet the fifth Hermetic law, a law that speaks not of poles but of flows, not of states but of change. The principle of vibration, the living pulse of the cosmos, awaits beyond the threshold. Beyond polarity, beyond rhythm, beyond cause, there is movement, not mechanical motion, but the trembling of existence itself, a hum beneath the silence, a fire within the stone. The fifth Hermetic law is the principle of vibration, and it reveals that nothing rests, everything moves, everything vibrates. This is not poetry, it is the root of reality. From the densest granite to the highest angelic thought, all is in ceaseless motion. Stillness is an illusion. Death is a transition. Emptiness is simply vibration too subtle for crude senses to grasp. Even the void vibrates with potential. Even the all, changeless and eternal, emanates its being in infinite waves. In the temples of Memphis, initiates were taught to feel these waves. Not with hands, but with the soul. They stood before pillars, tuned to sacred harmonics, chanted words not for sound but for frequency. They walked labyrinths designed to accelerate internal vibration, so that thought could rise, emotion could purify, and flesh could become luminous. For the Hermetic master, vibration is not passive, it is the key to mastery. To change your state is to change your frequency. Anger burns at one rhythm, peace at another. Disease, too, is a distortion of natural vibration, and healing, a restoration of inner harmony. This is the basis of ancient sound magic, where syllables born from deep diaphragms realign the energy body. It is why the names of gods were never spoken lightly. Each one was a formula, a tuning fork, a living spell. And vibration governs more than health or thought. It binds dimensions. Realms overlap not in space, but in resonance. The physical, astral, and causal planes are layers of frequency, each vibrating at a different octave of the same divine scale. This is why sacred sites hum, why dreams open portals, why visions occur at the edge of sleep, because the veil thins where frequencies converge. The emerald tablet itself speaks in vibrational code, as above, so below, not because they mirror visually, but because their vibrations resonate. What vibrates in the celestial spheres echoes in the blood. The planets sing their silent songs, and the soul responds. Astrology, properly understood, is vibrational physics, not fortune-telling, but resonance mapping. But vibration also connects to desire, intention, thought. What you consistently dwell upon, you begin to vibrate with. And what you vibrate with, you attract. This is not superstition. It is sympathetic resonance. The ancient mystics knew this and purified their minds not for morality's sake, but for metaphysical precision. They sought to vibrate in harmony with the divine, so that their lives would become instruments played by the hand of the all. And yet, if all things vibrate, if there is no fixed form, no true stillness, then identity itself is fluid. Who you are today is not who you were yesterday. The soul is a melody in motion. Consciousness evolves not by leap, but by tuning. This is liberation. To know you are not fixed but in process. That your suffering, your longing, your darkness are all frequencies that can be tuned toward light. And thus, the seeker begins to listen more deeply, not just to sound but to silence, not just to action, but to being. They become a mystic musician plucking strings unseen, aligning self with cosmos. But now a deeper paradox arises. If everything vibrates, if nothing is fixed, then how does anything exist at all? What allows things to appear separate, to form identities, to take shape? The answer lies in the sixth Hermetic law, the principle of gender, which reveals not biological difference, but the divine mechanics of manifestation. Before form is born, before thought becomes thing, there is union, a sacred fusion of two primordial forces, not male and female as the world crudely defines them, but the eternal interplay between activity and receptivity, projection and incubation, seed and soil. This is the principle of gender, the sixth Hermetic law, and it reveals that gender exists in everything. Everything has its masculine and feminine principles, but do not be misled by appearances. This law speaks not of human roles or physical anatomy, but of cosmic architecture. It is the mystery behind the birthing of universes, the hidden current within every act of creation, from the shaping of galaxies to the shaping of a single idea. The masculine is not man, the feminine is not woman, rather, the masculine is the giver, the directive force, the focus flame. The feminine is the receiver, the matrix of potential, the fertile abyss in which the fire takes root and becomes form. The Hermetic sages understood this not as duality, but as sacred complementarity. In the Corpus Hermeticum, it is written, "The father is mind, the mother is the womb." From their embrace arises logos, the word, the ordering principle, the divine child. In Kabbalah, this is mirrored in Chokmah and Binah, wisdom and understanding, whose union gives rise to the tree of life. In Egypt, it is Atum and Nun. In India, Shiva and Shakti. In every sacred tradition, the pattern repeats. The universe is a child born of divine marriage. This law operates within you. Every thought you think is a masculine spark. But until that spark is held, nurtured, and gestated in the feminine womb of imagination, emotion, and belief, it cannot take form. Action without receptivity is violence. Receptivity without direction is chaos. But their harmony births miracles. The Hermetic initiate does not seek to suppress one principle or exalt the other. They seek inner and outer union to become the androgynous whole, the perfected vessel, the alchemical rebus. You see, the ancient alchemists did not seek to turn lead into gold alone. They sought to unite the sun and the moon within themselves. The sun, radiant, assertive, illuminating; the moon, reflective, intuitive, fertile. Only when the opposites embrace within the self does the philosopher's stone emerge, the awakened soul, capable of creating in alignment with the divine, and the temples reflected this. Twin columns, Jachin and Boaz, solar discs nestle. In lunar horns, labyrinths designed with spirals and straight lines, the dance of masculine and feminine etched in stone. The high priestess, veiled and seated between the pillars, was not a woman, but the archetype of inner balance, the gateway between worlds. Yet this principle goes beyond the self. It shapes societies, technologies, even destinies. When a culture becomes too masculine, all conquest, structure, and force, it collapses into tyranny. When it becomes too feminine, all chaos, passivity, and feeling, it dissolves into entropy. Balance is not peace, it is power. Sacred gender is not about roles, it is about rhythm. And when this balance is struck, when the seed is pure and the womb is ready, manifestation occurs, reality crystallizes, thought becomes thing. This is the sacred engine behind all magic, all prayer, all creation. But now, a question flickers in the seeker's heart. If all is mind and all vibrates, and all moves through cause, rhythm, polarity, and gender, then is there a final veil, one more secret that binds these laws together? Indeed, there is. It is the hidden root of all motion, the silent architect of all illusion, the seventh and final Hermetic law, the principle of correspondence. As the seeker stands on the threshold of all the laws, a quiet realization begins to dawn, not in thunder or revelation, but in the soft, repeating pattern woven through all things. A spiral in a seashell, the orbit of stars around a galactic womb, the mirrored chambers of the heart and the temple. It is here in this web of reflection that the final key emerges, as above, so below, as within, so without, as the universe, so the soul. This is the principle of correspondence, the seventh Hermetic law, and the invisible thread that ties all mysteries into one. It is the law of resonance, of sacred geometry, of symbolic reality. Nothing exists in isolation. Every part is a microcosm of the whole. The ancient Hermetists did not view the universe as a collection of separate objects, but as a holographic organism, every cell containing the code of the entire being. What happens in one sphere echoes in another. What is written in the stars is engraved in the flesh. The body is the scroll of the heavens, and the soul is the echo of the divine. In the temples of the Nile, the initiate would lie beneath ceilings, carved with celestial maps, constellations mirrored in stone above the sleeping form. It was not decoration, it was instruction. The seeker was meant to feel the truth, that the gods of the sky are not distant deities, but internal forces. That Sirius rising in the heavens marked not only the flooding of the Nile, but the awakening of hidden knowledge within the blood, celestial and terrestrial, one breath, one pulse. This is why astrology, sacred architecture, numerology, and alchemy were never separate sciences. They were expressions of the same correspondence, different languages speaking of one truth. A pyramid was not merely a tomb, it was a diagram of ascent. A myth was not merely a tale, it was a code of the soul, and number was not merely a count. It was a vibrational signature of divine archetypes. The initiate learned to read the world as scripture. Every shadow, every whisper, every event was a message from the divine. But the greatest correspondence is the one between the inner and the outer. The ancients knew what modern mystics are just beginning to reclaim, that the outer world is a mirror of the inner state. That which you believe you see, that which you repress, you attract, that which you honor within, you awaken without. This is not metaphor, it is mechanics. The soul emits a frequency, and the world responds in kind. Your life is a temple, built by the shape of your consciousness. And yet, this is not a call to escape the world, but to see it truly. For when you begin to recognize the correspondence, everything becomes meaningful. The hawk circling above is no longer random, it is Horus watching. The broken mirror on the wall is no longer nuisance, it is a symbol of psychic fracture. The stranger who speaks a phrase your heart needed to hear is not coincidence. It is Hermes speaking through veils. The path of correspondence is the path of remembering that heaven and earth are not two rungs, but one reality folded into layers, that the angel and the animal both live within you, that every sacred mountain in myth, Sinai, Olympus, Meru points to the spine within your body where divinity climbs through chakras like a serpent of light. And when this truth is seen not just with the mind, but felt with the soul, the veil begins to fall. You begin to read the world not as chaos, but as scripture. The mundane becomes magical, the forgotten becomes sacred. You see that the same spiral carved into the temple wall is written in your DNA, that the journey of the stars is the journey of the heart, that the story of creation is your own becoming. But this is not the end, for if all 7 laws form the architecture of reality, then what lies beyond the laws, what remains when all symbols are dissolved, when the self is silent, when the seeker becomes the sought? The answer is not written, it must be experienced. In the final part of our journey, we return not with knowledge, but with gnosis, not as students, but as the transformed. There comes a moment in every sacred journey when the maps are laid down, the teachings fall silent, and the seeker stands alone at the threshold, not of knowledge, but of being. After the 7 laws have been studied, felt, and lived, there remains one final act, to step beyond them, not to abandon the laws, but to dissolve into what gives rise to them. This is the 8th gate, the unspoken path, the hidden octave, and it leads not forward, but inward. The Hermetic texts call it the All, others have named it Brahman, the Tao Ain Sif, the void, the source. But names only veil it, for this is not something that can be known in thought. It is the eternal silence that contains all sound, the infinite stillness beneath every vibration, the unmoved mover behind rhythm, polarity. Cause, it is not the law, it is the lawgiver, not the symbol, but the essence. In the ancient rites, When the final veil was lifted, the initiate would enter a chamber of darkness, no sound, no form, no self. And there, within the absolute absence of all things, they would awaken, not to visions or angels or revelation, but to the pure awareness of I am, not as ego, but as the all itself, shining through the window of the soul. For the ultimate Hermetic truth is this: you are not separate from the all, you are the all dreaming itself through you. The seeker is the path, the law is the seeker, the world is the mirror, and the mirror is mind, all the gods, the symbols. The myths are masks worn by your own essence to lead you back to yourself. The serpent who bites its tail is not a riddle, it is a memory that all beginnings are endings, all journeys are returns, and in this return something subtle changes. You walk the same world, but see it differently. The stone is no longer stone, it is condensed thought. The tree sings with sacred geometry. The stranger carries the face of the divine. Your own breath becomes prayer. Your silence becomes temple. You no longer seek truth, you embody it. You no longer chase light, you radiate it. You no longer ask what the laws are. You live then with every step. The principle of mentalism becomes your canvas, causation your brush, rhythm your dance, polarity your alchemy, vibration your language, gender your power, correspondence your compass. But you are none of these. You are the space in which they rise. And as the veil dissolves, the initiate disappears not into death, but into transparency. You become the clear glass through which the divine sees itself. The world is no longer something to master, but to bless, to shape with reverence, to love without division. This is the sacred return, the and that is a beginning, the ancient silence beneath all names, the all that is no thing yet gives birth to everything. And so, we end where we began, in the stillness between moments. But now, you know that stillness is not empty, it is alive, it is you. The journey is complete, but the mystery remains eternal.